We're back. Episode 4, coming off of just fantastic bowl performance. Here's the deal with Brendan and Scott. I'm Scott.
I'm Brendan.
Still Brendan. That's good. And welcome again to our podcast listeners, and ready for all the fun in those ear holes for the fourth time. Obviously we continue to be brought to you, our fair listener, by Linesight 2020, linesight2020.com. That spot's always for sale. And I think with our hundreds of listeners and downloads, I feel like, we've got some real value out there for a sponsor.
Yep, but nobody rides for free, Scott.
That's right, baby. So email myself, Scott, SCOTT, at linesight2020.com, or Brendan, that's BRENDAN, at linesight2020.com for those sponsorship opportunities. Follow us on Twitter at linesight2020, Instagram at linesight2020. You can see all of our fancy posts, keep up with our performance just like we do on the website, and generally follow our funny social media takes, right?
I think you're incredibly funny and sensitive at the same time.
I know, right? I am pretty sensitive.
You like chick flicks.
Well, let's get into our winner, who also likes chick flicks, I bet. Our raffle winner from last week, John A. We definitely expect some pictures of that Linesight 2020 fleece in our Instagram post at some point.
Didn't he used to sell women's clothing?
He definitely sold women's jeans at one point. Just jeans, though.
Well, that's what I like to see women in.
No doubt.
I know I purchased a dress for my wife from him at one point.
Oh, so not just, was it a jean dress?
It was not a jean dress. I think it was polka dotted and looked kind of 4th of July like.
The fact that you remembered what dresses look like, I don't even.
Well, it's the only time I've ever bought a dress in my entire life, so it was fairly memorable.
Other than that phase in college, I'm sure. Well, NFL final week is coming up, so we will discuss that on the podcast here. The playoffs, obviously, we have very good history with the NFL playoffs. Our NFL performance the last 6 weeks has been amazing. Future looking, I will tease ahead, as they say in the business. Fantasy baseball. We are nerds, and we will have a fantasy baseball podcast as long as there's a baseball season.
Yeah, I don't know where the two sides sit right now. It seems like there's been quite a bit of inactivity, and you're talking about pitchers and catchers reporting in 40 days or thereabouts. And so these the two sides, the union and the owners, need to get down at the negotiating table and get going lickety split so we can start this thing on time.
Yeah, typically if I want something, I'll sit down with somebody and say, hey, this is what I want, instead of just sitting at home and having gout in my ankle.
Well, I would like for my gout to go away. It looks like frankly, a loaf of bread is harvesting and rising directly in my left ankle, and I'm walking around like Willis Reed.
I don't think anyone needs that visual, but yeah, so we'll talk a little baseball. Obviously, that's kind of where our subscribers have gotten a ton of value in the past. Go check our historical performance in baseball on the website. We'll talk some golf. We'll add golf to our repertoire. But for this podcast, no more free passes. As you just said, no free lunch. We'll have lots of entertainment, a lot of information and content, but our subscribers are really the heart of our business. And so we want them to get the most value out of their purchase. And I think another thing for us, with touts that are out there, you'll get a game for $20 or a sport for whatever per month. With our subscription, you get everything. You get the baseball, you get the golf, you get the NFL playoffs, you get the NFL final season, you got the bowl games, you got NCAA basketball, all for one price, right? You get it all. You don't have to bet it all, but you certainly get it all.
Right.
And that's where the value lies. So let's talk about how we did. Bowl season is over, excluding the Natty, brought to you by Natty Light. That's going to be my new kind of sponsorship, is let's bring Natty Light into the national championship conversation.
I don't understand why that partnership hasn't been signed yet.
No doubt.
It makes more sense than anything I can think of.
It makes more sense than anything I've ever said, probably. All right. Episode 1. We did 6-6 in the bowls, minus 2.45 units. Episode 2 struggled. There were some COVID things in there, but no excuses. We've got to handicap a little bit better in there. 2-7, minus 6.85 units. But my gosh, did we predict that the model would turn around? We did. And did we turn around? We did. Episode 3, 15-7, plus 13.8 units for a total of 23-20 in the bowls, plus 4.5 units. And we still have Georgia and Alabama.
We're hitting 20 units if Utah can close the deal.
Yes. Utah's leading the whole game. And we're like, okay, it's going to come down to Baylor. We kind of felt like Baylor was a lock at that point. And man, Ohio State really just kind of, Utah was beaten by a historical performance.
Yeah, it was something else. And I will shift a ton of blame on Utah for that. If you can't cover number 11, he's getting the ball. Hey, grab him as he's going over the middle. Commit penalties.
Fine. I'm for that.
He's beating you half to death. This game isn't even a game if you take care of that responsibility. And they didn't do enough on the adjustments. We would have lost that game had their backup quarterback not come in and performed admirably.
Yes, very true. Cam Rising exits the game with what looked like an extremely violent head injury to the ground. He actually was on the field after the game, and so that was a good sign to see him out there walking around at least. So, favorite bowl moments. Give me one of your favorite bowl moments.
That's a great question because I had a lot of them as I was stuck inside with COVID-19. Not for me personally. I would never subject myself to such dastardly diseases, but my wife did contract COVID, so we stayed in and watched a substantial amount of football. I think my favorite moment was probably watching Baylor play physically against Ole Miss. I was so impressed with the way that Baylor, they didn't really look all that good or crisp offensively as a unit, but man, they hit so hard and they run sideline to sideline. Nothing was free for Ole Miss, and they won the game 21-7. I really enjoyed physical football. Too much is being placed on spread offenses, and not that I have anything against those, but I just want some resistance on the other side. And I think Baylor's a team that gives you that. Obviously, Georgia can give you that, and Alabama can give you that as well. Any and all the games that were physical were my favorite parts.
No fun, Dave, is no fun on the sidelines and no fun to play against.
That's right.
I mean, for me, obviously, I love good handicapping, right? Whenever we handicap a game and it's just from the beginning, it's the one. Like we had Georgia, we had Alabama, we had the max unit play on Alabama, we had almost the max unit play on Georgia, and they just didn't even come close to sniffing losing those games against the spread or straight up, right?
Domination.
And I think obviously the not fun part is when you handicap a game poorly, and Mississippi State was one of those. Mike Leach is just, he's got to be overrated at this point. He's 2-10 in bowls against the spread. He hasn't won anything really. He had a very good team at Texas Tech. He had a kind of a gimmicky system. The air raid was innovative at the time. He learned under at Kentucky.
Hal Mummy.
But he just hasn't done anything. He's just kind of an interesting guy that doesn't ever win, really.
Yeah, he's taken on the form of bits, and people are attracted to him because of his uniqueness. And I'll tell you, another thing that's unique about him is the fact that he doesn't seem to really care that he's getting his ass kicked in front of a live studio audience there at the Liberty Bowl.
Yes.
And he showed like he wasn't really in it from the start.
No, he was not. My inability to handicap Dana Holgorsen games is still intact. So that's good. And then the weirdest one to me, the weirdest bowl game was Army's inability to score against the worst rush defense in college football. They win it on a last second field goal, which is nice and good and fun. But man,
go Army.
That was not a great handicap. But let's get to the national championship game. I hate that it's an SEC championship rematch. I hate the SEC dominating the sport again. But it is what it is, as they say in the business, and this is a rematch of Georgia and Alabama. How do you sort of handicap the sides on here? I know we're not going to give a pick, but we are going to post it on our website, blindside2020.com.
These are the two best teams. We're not uncovering anything there that hadn't already been said by everyone in the media, by both fan bases. This game's going to be much closer than the SEC championship, regardless of who wins. And I do think that the number, which I believe is 3 now, Georgia favored by 3, makes a lot of sense. Georgia had an incredible season. Alabama did not. Alabama jumped up in the SEC championship and played to their full max out potential. In Georgia, I don't like going down the road of, well, they didn't really play that hard, or they didn't show anything because they knew they were already in the playoff and it didn't mean as much to them. They needed to win that game. They wanted to win that game. Saban is really in control of Georgia and their head coach, Kirby Smart, right now. I think it's 7 games in a row that Alabama has beaten Georgia. So the question you really come to ask yourself when you're looking at are you going to bet this game or not? Is it Kirby's time? Is it Georgia's time to get over the hump? They have all the tools they need. They have all of the players.
Saban is not renting in Kirby Smart's head. He has purchased.
Penthouse.
And he is firmly encamped there. And so Georgia needs this game in the worst way.
I've heard from people that are baffled at how a line can be set with Georgia as the favorite when we just saw Alabama kick them pretty good in Atlanta. And I do think it just goes back to what the lines makers see. How much money can we get? Where can we set the point spread in order to get enough money on Alabama? Because the people that bet typically are people that have been involved in the season all year long, and they know how dominant Georgia was. And quite frankly, Georgia looked more dominant in their semifinal win than Alabama did against Cincinnati. Now, Alabama crushed Cincinnati. I'm not saying that they didn't, but Georgia looked like they meant business when they got to Miami, and they thumped a better team than Alabama.
Yeah, Zaire White was leading some players to dump the Gatorade on Kirby Smart, and Kirby is like, do not pour that on me. This is not the game we want to win. I do not care about this game. Great performance and all, but the national championship against our hated rival is the one that we're trying to get. And so this is not the end of the season. So I think they're going to be very focused.
What do you think about that total? I think it sits at 52 currently. What sort of angles are you thinking about on that?
I mean, I lean under here. The fact that Georgia's defense outside of a game has given up like 12 points this season.
Tried 9.6.
9.6 points per game.
That's with the beating in the SEC championship.
Right. So take that game out. I mean, Georgia's goal before the season, their coordinator, their defensive players said, we want to hold our opponents to under 18 points per game. And in this college football environment with these offenses, that seemed like, holy cow, that's a really low number. And then they crushed that by 3x. And so they've had one bad defensive performance, which is recent, which is against this same team. And so it feels like they're going to show back up in this national championship game and really, really put the clamps on Alabama.
So you think, if anything, this game plays under?
Yeah, that's where I would lean.
Man, it's so hard to think about national championship games going under.
Agree.
I think it definitely affects the defense in preparation of the offense in the short week that it is. I mean, they just won a game a week ago, less than that if you're counting today. And it's hard to get the turnaround. The fun thing is that the familiarity is is very, very high in this game. And I probably lean under as well. But these national championship games have a tendency to really go over. I think last year, was it 52-24? Was that the final last year?
I believe so.
Against Ohio State. Of course, Ohio State defense, that's optional. So it's a different cat. But yeah, I think I would lean under, but very slightly.
About first half under. First half under is the derivative of they come out, they're sort of feeling each other out to see where the adjustments have been made. So not much action is really happening in the first half. Maybe we can take a look at that.
It's going to be a great game for sure. And we will definitely have a pick. We'll probably throw some props in there as well, since this is the game that's going to attract that. We typically don't ever play props during the regular season due to just lack of market involvement as far as that's concerned. But we're clearly familiar with these two offenses and defenses, and I'm sure we'll have a few prop plays like we normally do for the national championship game.
Yeah, and this is the culmination of the entire season. So you'll see props from us in this game. You'll see props from us in the Super Bowl as well, because that's just fun, right? I mean, how many years in a row have you taken the national anthem under?
It's going to hit one of these days.
One day it's going to go under. All right. NFL football. We're to week 18, the first week 18 in the history of the NFL. Our NFL performance over the last third of the season has been fantastic. Last 6 weeks, 23-15 plus 13 units. Overall this season, 53-44 plus 11.8 units. We've really hit our stride here in the last several weeks. So let's just talk about the angles we're looking at for some of these games in week 18. Tons of crazy playoff scenarios, especially in the AFC, lots of jockeying for position. Not so much in the NFC, where there's kind of 5 teams that can move around a little bit, but a lot of the teams have already secured playoff berths no matter what. But let's start with Chiefs at Broncos. Chiefs -10. How do you feel about this
Saturday afternoon?
I love a Saturday afternoon game. That's fun.
That is fun. At first, I was really critical of the NFL for doing an extra week. How's that going to play? Is that going to water down some things? What's this playoff seeding? Why is only one team getting a bye? I'm definitely coming around on it, and it's in year one. I think they've thought this through very, very well. I love the kickoffs. The implications. I'm actually excited for the last week of the NFL season. I think that Kansas City is we're still going to be in play for the number 1 seed when they kick it off on Saturday afternoon, but they're going to have the Titans go down in order to secure that bye, which I think we'll get to that game here in a little bit. Kansas City is a much better team than Denver. I do love Denver's defense, though. I really do. I wonder what Denver's going to do in the offseason because they have quarterback
Russell Wilson.
They have quarterback issues. Russell Wilson is probably on John Elway's.
Aaron Rodgers.
I don't see that, but they do have a coaching issue. Maybe Elway will hire himself to go down to the sideline. I do like the defense for Denver. Kansas City's defense has come along. They turned their season around. I think 2 months ago, I said this is the worst defense in the NFL.
Well, this happened last year. Steve Spagnuolo, I don't know if it's a signature of his defense, but typically when a new coordinator takes over, it takes a bit for the team to understand the scheme and kind of figure out what they're doing. And so they get better at the end of the season. But this is actually 2 seasons in a row where Kansas City was terrible on defense early in the season and got a lot better as the season went along.
And then last week got completely abused by Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow.
Yes, I love Joe Burrow. We were on Cincy. So Kansas City 8-0 against the spread outside of that last game against Cincinnati. So 8-1 in their last 9. The Broncos bad, right? Drew Lock is bad. He was bad at Missouri. He's bad in the NFL. I don't understand how he's a starting quarterback, which I guess he's not. He's more of a backup. But to your point, I mean, Denver's defense is good, and they thought they were a quarterback away. So they go get Bridgewater. Bridgewater was okay, and they lose him to injury. And so, I mean, they just don't have anything to win this game with. Here's what I fear, and this is going to come up again with the Titans and Texans. These teams that are huge favorites that kind of need to win, but don't really need margin, might go up real early in the first half. So maybe, again, Chiefs first half might be a derivative look here. But I fear them sitting folks in the fourth quarter, which leaves a large spread backdoor wide open for shenanigans to happen from a gambling perspective. How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's always possible, particularly in these scenarios and playing at home. The Denver fans just show up. They're not going to punt anything. They're playing against a hated rival. They would love to give them a defeat. They're probably locked into, mid-round draft pick anyway. You might as well win the game. It's not going to change much on your position. But it's really difficult to go against Mahomes in that offense.
Yep. This goes one or two ways. Denver quits, and it doesn't matter or they score a meaningless touchdown in the last 2 minutes. But we will finish that handicap for the subscribers if that is a game we do intend to play. Cowboys, Saturday night, fever and football, -7 at the Eagles. The Cowboys outlier was against football team 2 weeks ago on Sunday Night Football. From an offensive perspective, they have been terrible on offense every week since then. We were on that game. Part of our handicap was football team on a short week. Cowboys offense has been terrible. They've got too many weapons. They got to figure it out at some point. They did figure it out, but they didn't figure it out fully, obviously. And that one was just a sweet spot for our handicap for the Cowboys. But, this one is different. Now that we see that as the outlier, last game against Philly, last game of the season against Philly, Cowboys have been blasted in this spot before when they had a good team and they had the playoffs on the line. They get beat 44-6 when Wade Phillips kicks a field goal down 30. I don't even understand what that was. But the other side of it says, why would you play the Eagles? I mean, their schedule's been pure soft serve the last 6 weeks.
Well, they don't really have much to play. They have less to play for than Dallas does, in my opinion, because they're already in and they can't win the division. They're going to be on the road, and that's pretty well set in stone. Jalen Hurts is a little bit banged up as he got avalanched on by the Redskins' decrepit stadium. And he's just absolutely banged up with his knee. I mean, you run the ball that many times, you get to week 18 and your fate, you probably need to rest a little bit. And then the COVID situation in this game is now out of control. We've got Parsons is now out officially for the game because of COVID. On the Philly side, you got Dallas Goedert sitting out. You've got the center Kelsey sitting out. You've got Fletcher Cox. Hey, if Fletcher Cox doesn't play against the Dallas Cowboys, I think Dallas wins by 3 touchdowns every single time they play. That guy is amazing. And I was thinking about this last night. He reminds me so much of Reggie White. And people love to talk about Lawrence Taylor when they talk about comparisons to players from long ago. And LT was awesome, not taking anything away with that. But as a kid watching Reggie White, I was like, get away from that guy.
Yeah.
Do not run near that guy. He will live in the backfield. Fletcher Cox is not too dissimilar from that in the slightest. Very few of these games have been close. So in recent history, I guess I'm a lean Cowboys, but we're going to have to wait and see who all's suiting up and playing Saturday night.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's head to Sunday. Steelers at Ravens. I've got Ravens minus 5.5 in this one. Tell me where you start on the handicap here.
Well, I start by contacting someone in the know that lives in Annapolis, Ryan Beard, a solid Ravens fan.
Loves the Ravens.
Wears the jerseys. I've seen him make his wife wear jerseys before. I'm pretty sure he yachts around with Steve Biscotti
in his Ray Lewis jersey.
I don't know if they have a Ray Lewis jersey yet.
Steve Smith.
Definitely a Steve Smith in there. I believe that a Steve Smith jersey is going to be a Hall of Fame jersey before too long.
Yeah, I think so. Steve Smith's a great player.
So in his words, if Lamar suits up, Ravens are going to win. They're going to cover. If Lamar doesn't, it seems like it's season over.
Huh. I think for this game from the handicapping side is I saw Ben Roethlisberger play his last game last week. He slow trotted around the field. I don't understand how you can come back from such an emotional situation.
Does he have a fast trot?
No, he definitely does not have a fast trot at all. So all trots are slow, but this one was extra slow. And so he's on a high emotional spot now with this last game at home. They're on a short week. I'm with Ryan Beard, maybe even without Lamar Jackson. The Ravens haven't been good, but the Steelers just aren't a good team. The Browns were checked out and it was a super emotional spot. We took the Steelers in that spot on Monday Night Football and it was perfect. Mike Tomlin has secured a 500 record for the 15th straight season. Only Mike Tomlin could get a 500 record in a 17-game season, which is shocking. But on the other side, the Ravens haven't been good for about 6 weeks. This game seems really boring to me. But I like Ryan's comment of they're just going to truck him. And I feel like that's right.
I don't think he's going to play. So I think that takes everything out of the equation. I think that they're perfectly fine with Huntley. He's shown that he can win some games. Now they're going to be ugly and he's going to run and try to slither on through the line and try to make reads and complete passes where he can. Just get the ball to Mark Andrews. That's what I would do if I was the Ravens, because that guy catches everything and uses his body so well. I just think that this is going to be a tight game, and maybe the Steelers may be catching too many points on this one.
Whose ankle feels better? Lamar Jackson. Or yours?
I knew where you were headed with that, and it's Lamar Jackson.
All right. Bengals at Browns. The Browns are -6. Okay. This is clearly
that's up to 6.
That's what I saw.
Oh boy.
This is clearly a spot where Vegas thinks the Bengals are sitting or maybe not showing up. I think that's the only way the Browns win by 7 is if the Bengals forfeit. I love the Bengals. We've been on the Bengals train several times this year. I love Joe Burrow. I love Jamar Chase. They still have something to play for here. But with KC playing on Saturday, I think Vegas gets the sense that KC wins. Bengals sit everybody. That's why this line sits where it is.
Yeah, I think so. I'm surprised it's already slid down to 6. I do realize, of course, that you got Brandon Allen playing quarterback now for Cincinnati instead of Joe Burrow, and that's a huge deal. And you've got, Case Keenum's going to play quarterback for the Browns.
Upgrade.
And that's a steady ship. And he's been in these spots before. He's a veteran.
If you get a backup quarterback named Case, you're doing good. I think. Love Case Keenum. Give me Case McCoy. That's fine too. I like him.
What's he up to?
He's brother coaching Colt.
Okay. Well, personal trainer.
Yeah.
Part of the entourage.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm seeing Nick Chubb is questionable. I'm seeing Kareem Hunt is questionable. I'm seeing lots of people out for the Bengals, including center, guard, safety, linebacker, defensive end. I guess the 6 points probably makes a lot of sense in this spot. And let's be true with facts. The score in the game they played on November 7th was Browns 41, Cincinnati 16.
I don't like that.
That was a beating.
That was a beating with all the right players playing.
I know.
Was that so? Is that the game Burrow got hurt in?
I think he's been hurt in every game. He has not been healthy and yet still produced at this level. And what can you say about Jamar Chase? I mean, that guy is absolutely incredible.
Offensive Rookie of the Year. All right. Bears at Vikings. Vikings minus 3.5. Battle of the lame ducks is what I'm calling this one. Matt Nagy. I don't see how he keeps his job. Mike Zimmer, probably not going to be a Vikings coach anymore.
I don't know. I think Mike might hang on.
Okay. I mean, they wanted to fire him for like 2 years and he kind of keeps making the playoffs, but this year he's not going to do that. So how do they keep him on after the non-playoff berth?
I just don't think that they see an upgrade from what they have. I think they're looking at their team and saying, we got hit by a pretty good injury bug. We lost a lot of close games. I think they're for the first 9 games of the season, in all their losses, it was like a field goal or less.
Yeah.
So they always do that in the exit coaches interviews, talk about, what could we have done differently? And I think in Zimmer's case, he's like, what we could have done differently is not drafted Kellen Mond. I want to make that perfectly clear that he is in no way to sit next to me or talk to me.
I think they like think Kellen Mond has a red shirt and they like don't want to burn his red shirt. They don't want to play him that bad.
I think it runs very, very deep that he was not on board with that signing. He must show absolutely nothing in practice because he got in for a series on Sunday night and then got pulled
and immediately got out.
And he got pulled after a 3 and out
right
at the end of a game that was already sealed. You don't see that very often.
No.
These two teams played on Monday night, probably 3 weeks ago now, and it was painful to watch. It felt like 100 penalties, but I did go back and check. It was only 16, but there was a flag on the field every time. The Bears can't get out of their own way. I don't think the Bears are near as bad as their record. I realize that Matt Nagy's probably going to get fired, so he can lose the visor and put on a hat that actually keeps his head warm. There's no shame in that anymore, Matt. But I don't think I think he's had a tremendous run of bad luck because I don't think that team's as bad as their record.
Yeah. So Justin Fields going to play this game. They're kind of, I don't know what they're doing with that. I mean, they go back to Dalton last week. They're going to play Fields this week. It's like, why would you change the last 2 weeks of the season? It doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
I think the only reason is you feel Fields is healthy enough, and it's another data point to see what he can do against a divisional opponent. That's the only thing that comes to mind for me. A point of note, though, in the series, Chicago's won outright the last 3 in Minnesota. Yeah, you didn't know that, Scott.
I didn't. And the Bears have been playing hard. I mean, they destroyed the Giants last week, which may not be any great shakes, but they did. They showed up. They played. On the Vikings side, Kirk Cousins loves noon games, so that tends to lean towards him. That's the only time he's good.
30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
There you go.
He's a stats guy. You watch him and you're like, yeah.
Let's
move on. Let's move on from that. And then you look at his numbers and you're like, those are better than most of the quarterbacks in the NFL.
You look at his numbers and you say, $30 million a year. Okay, sounds good.
That's not my money.
All right, Titans minus 10.5 at the Texans. The Titans to me are so interesting, right? They lose Derrick Henry. They lose A.J. Brown for stretches. They lose Julio Jones for stretches.
Stretches is not putting the correct word on that. He's played like 18 snaps this season.
Right. And they're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed in the AFC.
That blows my mind. It seems to me like they've lost more than 5 games. One of those being to the Texans by 9 points.
Right, exactly.
In November.
That's right.
That's shameful. And here's what I'm betting. Again, we're not throwing out picks, and this line's it could go either way for us and the things we look at. But I believe that Mike Vrabel is going to kick his players' ass if the players don't kick Houston's ass.
Mike Vrabel is the Belichick tree limb that actually worked. No one else from his coaching tree.
I think Brian Flores is going to work out in Miami.
Yeah, Brian Flores is okay. But I go the Bill O'Brien's,
Matt
Patricia's, and the Josh McDaniels, and which he's going to get another head coaching job this year, I'm sure, and fail miserably again. But Vrabel is the one that stands out, obviously. The Texans here playing for nothing, but playing hard. I think they may have something in Davis Mills. He hasn't been terrible.
He's not good.
You're wrong. I bet you they do not draft a quarterback in the first 3 rounds.
Do they even have a pick in the first 3 rounds?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Bill O'Brien made sure that they would not have any picks on the first 2 days as far as he was concerned. I think Davis Mills, and I've said this, so I'm going to have to continue to beat the drum. Davis Mills, career backup in the NFL, 4 to 5 years.
I am a notorious poor grader of quarterbacks, so you're probably right. I love Ryan Leaf. He was my pick over Peyton Manning, so there's that. Hey, at least I stick by it, right?
Yeah. Hey, Ryan's got a successful coaching career, from what I understand.
Yeah, he's turned his life around. So back to the Texans here. As you said, they beat the Titans. They beat the Chargers 2 weeks ago by like 20
and scored
40 points. I mean, it's a really confusing team. So just like we talked about with Kansas City and Denver, is this one where the Titans get up big, the Texans play hard and cover at the end of the game? That's the thing.
The Titans have to win. I mean, they lose the number 1 seed, and Derrick Henry has to play next Saturday or Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, so they get an extra week of rest for Derrick Henry.
Right.
You're right.
They're going to be supremely motivated to thump them, but there's no quit in the Texans. They've shown that every single week. So hats off to them.
Yep. All right. Saints -4 at the Falcons. Oh, man. Matt Ryan, as we discussed off air, remind me of his cap hit next year.
I think it's 44 million, maybe 45. Not that it matters when you get into that number.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, he'll be back in camp for the Falcons
for the next 2 years.
Possibly so. Now they could turn it around. I still think he's got something. I just don't think he's worth that amount.
Yeah, they've lost a lot of close games. They've been decent on offense a couple of 5, 6, 7 times. I kind of lean to him here, to be honest. At home, what was my stat earlier on teams that are?
It was nerdy. I know that.
All right, here we go. Since 1990, teams that are out of playoff contention are 94, 56, and 4. That's 63% against the spread in weeks 16 and 17, which would be 17 and 18 this year, versus teams that must win to keep their playoff hopes alive. That is this game.
How many of those winners in that spot were 30th in rushing?
How many of them had a $48 million quarterback?
The answer to that's 0. But they're a one-sided team. They don't run the ball at all. They got Mike Davis in the offseason, and I thought that was going to be a really good pickup for them, and they don't use him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Smith doesn't like him, doesn't like the tools he brings. I loved him at South Carolina and thought he was pretty damn good at Carolina in the Panthers. And obviously somebody in Atlanta thought so too, or they wouldn't have picked him up.
You know, tell me how you feel about teams spoiling divisional opponents' chances at the playoffs in the NFL.
Do they certainly care? I think they do care. I think it happens. And I do think that these two teams would fit that bill. They've been rivals since before realignment. They're kind of the SEC teams of choice down there. And I do think the Falcons would love to jump up and bite the Saints. I think Taysom Hill's the big X factor here. They've been able to win games with him at quarterback. Hadn't been impressive, but they have a defense that's just, I mean, they are the embodiment of physicalness. They get away with so much stuff in that defensive backfield. So they're playing right on the edge of breaking the rules, but within the rules. And
that comes from the Greg Williams days.
It does. Now they have Allen is their Dennis Allen is their defensive coordinator, and that guy looks like he could be poised to get another head job. He didn't get a very long leash when he was coaching the Raiders, and this defense is really, really strong. And they've had some injuries to deal with too on the defensive side, not just the offensive side.
Yeah, Taysom Hill not great. Keon Kamara make Hill throw the ball. That's going to be the Falcons' plan, I'm sure. The Saints also need San Francisco to lose to the Rams, but they got to take care of business first.
Yep. Play at the same time, and that's the genius of it all. You better put it all out there because you can't know what happened in the earlier games and say, oh well, we'll sit tight.
That's right. And that is a perfect segue into the 49ers at the Rams. The Rams are -4. The Rams are at home. They have to win this game to win the division. Bonus, they can knock the 49ers out of the playoffs by beating them.
And it was a revenge game because the 49ers undressed them on Monday Night Football by 21 points a few weeks back. This is my favorite. This is the most intriguing game to me of the NFL weekend is this game.
Well, my question is who's betting against San Francisco right now? They are hot. They've been breaking every Kyle Shanahan betting trend that you can think of. And they've had horrible spots.
Fade Shanahan?
Yeah, so they've had horrible spots from a betting standpoint and from a Kyle Shanahan standpoint the last several weeks, and they've won and covered 3 of the last 4. Stafford's been bad the last 2 weeks, really.
I really don't get that. He's completely erratic.
Yeah, 2 picks against Baltimore last week, 3 picks against the Vikings in a win. And, they barely beat Baltimore last week, 20-19. He just hasn't been good. And so, do the Rams really come out fired up and say, yeah, this is what we want to do it. Yay.
Stafford has the interceptions. Jimmy G has the thumb. These are
thumb up.
These are 2 teams that could go either way. I could see the Rams just taking care of them, but I could also see the 49ers winning outright. Case can be made for either side in this. It is worth noting that San Francisco's covered 4 of the last 5 against Sean McVay and the Rams. So maybe the question becomes, do they have the Rams number?
Yeah, and have the Rams taken care of anybody this season, really? I mean, outside of a couple of games, they
beat Tampa, and that was awfully impressive. And they handled business against the Cardinals. Got up on them early and stayed on top and won that game. I really thought they were the team to beat back in September. I thought this is the best team out there. They went and got Stafford. That was the icing on the cake that they need. And then they come up with Odell and Von Miller.
Right.
That just looked like, oh my goodness, this is meant to be. They're going to get right back into that Super Bowl spot that they were in a couple of years ago. But this time they've got the horses and they can close the deal. I'm just not confident in them.
Yeah, it feels like the Lakers signing all the Karl Malones and Gary Paytons of the world when they're kind of past their prime, but they had good names and they want to win a title. All right. Staying on the West Coast for the last really intriguing game. Interesting football being played on the West Coast because the Pac-12 clearly didn't care about playing football at all anyways. Chargers at Raiders. Chargers are -3 in this game. Kick me off a sweet, sweet handicap, sir.
Winner go home. Sunday Night Football division. Love it.
So great.
I don't love it as much as the Rams and the 49ers, also West Coast. Just because I don't think that either of the teams are as good as the other two teams playing in that game. Man, Derek Carr's a survivor. How these guys have 9 wins is beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, they lose Gruden in the middle of the season to email gate. They lose Henry Ruggs on obviously a tragic car accident. And they really took a hit right after those two things happened, but they've bounced back. I'm with you. Derek Carr, quite the fighter here.
I don't get it. It seems like a lot of smoke and mirrors, but they are pretty charged. They get this game at home. To me, the Chargers don't have any tendencies or splits that make any sense either. They can go out and beat Kansas City one week and then get absolutely dump trucked by the Texans the next. They make no sense. Undeniable that their offense is hot rod ready. I mean, they are good. They can score the points, and they've got all of the skill positions set. I just don't buy them. I don't buy their spirit.
Yeah.
I don't buy their defense really at all. They're a sieve at allowing yards and points. I don't know. It's a good Chargers are the better team on paper. I don't think many people would argue that.
They are the favorite on the road, which puts them at probably a 6 or 7 point favorite at home.
There's something about the Raiders. I'm a lean Raiders.
Okay. This is my favorite playoff scenario, though. If Jacksonville beats Indianapolis, the Chargers and the Raiders could kneel the ball for 60 minutes and both make the playoffs.
How is that possible?
If they tie and Jacksonville beats Indy, the Chargers and the Raiders are both in. Look it up.
Huh. I saw the unique note about, ties in that game, but I didn't realize it was that cut and dry. That would be fantastic. I'm sure Sunday Night Football would love the kneeling game.
We are going to hammer the under if Jacksonville beats Indianapolis.
Yeah, be on the lookout for that, subscribers.
All right, here's the other games. Football team -7 at Giants. God, no thanks. Colts -15.5 at the Jaguars. Jaguars have totally quit this season. Colts will probably win, so my whole kneel down thing will not even be. We shouldn't even talked about it. Packers and Lions. I had the line being off at this point. Jets at Bills. The Bills are playing great, going into the playoffs. Need a win to even be in the hunt for the number 1 seed. Need a win to win the AFC East. So they are quite large favorites at home against the Jets.
I didn't like the way Josh Allen played the first half of that game against Atlanta.
No.
We ended up with a push on that game because of it. 3 interceptions.
Terrible. He was probably looking ahead to the Jets.
Right.
Panthers at Bucks. Bucks are -8. Nothing to play for, but the Panthers are bad. Pats -6.5 at the Dolphins. Interesting under thinking here as Brian Flores pretty good against young quarterbacks. Bill Belichick, long history of defensive success against young quarterbacks. Under might be a lean there. Seahawks, Cardinals. Cardinals are -6.5 to finish out the season. Anything else on the NFL before we move on?
Interesting note I found in looking deep in the history of the Pats and Dolphins. The Dolphins have not won 3 in a row against the Patriots since 2001.
That is interesting.
That's 20 years of domination over an opponent. And that's what they'd be staring at. They've won the last 2 as we sit, because the Dolphins knocked off the Patriots in week 1, 17-16.
Yeah, and we've played the last few seasons Dolphins at home against the Pats.
We love
the
that
Dolphins
spot.
are great at home against Bill Belichick in New England. So interesting game there. All right. College basketball is upon us. Once we shut the door to college football, we will now move into the hoopage. Let's talk just a little bit about some of the marquee games this week. First of all, we'll address again our friends on the West Coast and the Pac-12 and the fact that they can't seem to actually get teams onto the floor.
It's a disaster. I mean, they're canceling every game. Not every game. There are a few that are being played, but their protocols. I know that they've updated their rules in terms of COVID protocols this week, so I give them a little bit of credit on that. But it's still ridiculous across the board, and should be looked at. And the shame is that the Pac-12's got some really, really good teams this year. But yeah, we'll jump into some marquee games. We've got conference play has started, and it is really, it changes the dynamics of everything. It gives us better data points because you've got historical rivalries, and it's just these guys know each other better than the non-conference schedule. So we'll go with 6 games to talk about on Saturday. Tennessee, number 18 team in the country, visits LSU Saturday. LSU's number 1 in defensive efficiency. Tennessee, number 2.
Okay.
It is going to be
slugfest.
It's going to be a slugfest, and those 2 coaches want it that way for sure. Love Tennessee, led by John Fulkerson. He's a big man. 6 boards a game, 1.5 blocks a game. He's kind of the heart and soul of the team. And LSU's got a guy named Darius Days, 14 points a game, 8 boards, 1.5 blocks. They did just lose to Auburn last week, but they played a great physical game the other night against Kentucky, scored the win. It was a slugfest as well. Expect the same thing with Tennessee coming to town on Saturday.
SEC basketball mirroring SEC football, just tough, hard-fought games, lots of defense.
It's a tremendous product. I mean, they've really turned that league around from it just being a Kentucky and some also-rans when other programs started really getting out and hiring coaches. The big-name coaches they're bringing in that are able to recruit's been a really big thing for that league. And then we get to the best league of them all, which is Big 12. Big 12 has got 3 heavyweight fights on Saturday. Iowa State, we won by half a point last night.
Always a good win.
Half a point. Buzzer beater by Tech. You thought it was totally in the bag, but luckily we bought that at the right time. And then OU just hung with Baylor pretty good. I mean, they ended up losing by 10 the other night. But I was pretty impressed with them. They went to Waco and kind of gave Baylor a little bit of run there for a little bit. Those 2 teams will square off in Norman.
Well, and your text to me during that game was, if you make mistakes, Baylor will absolutely kill you.
That's
OU
right.
was playing great, but they made a few mistakes, and Baylor wins by 10.
You turn it over, and they get up on you fast. Really, really fast. And that, they're the number 1 team in the nation for a reason. We'll get to them in a second. The Cyclones, 4th in defense efficiency. OU's 36th. Oklahoma brings Porter Moser in as the new head coach this year. You may remember him from the Loyola Chicago Cinderella seasons.
Did they bring Sister Jean with him?
They did not.
Damn.
They didn't. She would have to be on loan, and I think her cap hit was like $44 million as well. She's Matt Ryan territory. OU's looked really good non-conference. They've got big wins over Florida, and then I watched them absolutely destroy Arkansas a few weeks back. Tempers flared. It was awesome. OU's got 3 stars on their team that can really play. Tanner Groves, Elijah Harkless, and Jordan Goldwire. That's a good trio. I think OU is going to be around. I love the coaching hire. I think they're a tournament team for sure. And then on the other side, you got the surprise upstart Iowa State Cyclones. This is so their coach is TJ Otzelberger.
Hushmanzada.
Not Hushmanzada. Otzelberger. This is his 3rd stint at Iowa State. He was an assistant in his 2 prior stints. Comes over from UNLV. Only lost on the season the other night to the aforementioned Baylor Bears. They're impressive. They beat rival Iowa by 21 points. They've got wins non-conference over Xavier and Creighton. So they've got a good transfer player, Isaiah Brockington. Was very successful at Penn State, transfers over to Iowa State. He gets a lot of the press for the Cyclones, but look out for guard Tyrese Hunter. That's my guy for the team.
Love it. Baylor TCU, another marquee matchup in the Big 12.
I like that because TCU only has 1 loss. And I imagine they're going to be catching double digits in this, probably a 12, 13 point line at home. They haven't played since December 21st. That's a huge hindrance, but they only have 1 loss. It was to Santa Clara, not the greatest loss in the world. But I think Jamie Dixon is actually slowly but surely turning it around in TCU. I know the fans are probably a little bit impatient. Hey, we're bringing in this pseudo upper echelon coach from Pitt.
He's been there a while, right?
Yeah, I think this is year 6.
Dang,
maybe even 7. And they've got a good nucleus. They've got a guard who does everything. His name is Mike Miles. 17 points a game, leads the team in assists, steals. He can kind of do it everything. The problem is, of course, Baylor can shut you down, and they can shut you down quick. They haven't been as formidable on the road. Of course, they've only left twice to be a visitor, and they are just so great at defense, floor spacing. But they haven't covered double digits on the road. So look out for that as a possible tighter game for a dog.
Yeah, these teams. So, we talk about Jamie Dixon at TCU for 6 years. These places, Fort Worth, TCU, they take a minute to build a program. Baylor took a minute to build a program, but Scott Drew's been there 20 years now. They won a national championship. They've been in the Final Four a couple of times. It's the small team-oriented basketball that ends up being the best, which I think is why the Big 12 ends up being the best basketball conference, because they really have one marquee basketball school in Kansas, and then Texas as kind of a secondary one. But all these teams, Baylor, Texas Tech, we'll talk about Kansas and Texas Tech in a second, but they've really built programs.
The Big 12 is going to get 8 teams in the tournament this year.
Again.
I don't see how they won't. They did so well non-conference. It's absolutely incredible. So yeah, we'll touch on Texas Tech hosting Kansas. Kansas 5th in the country in offensive efficiency. Tech 5th in the country in defensive efficiency. I watched the Tech Iowa State game last night. Man, Tech does not give an inch on defense. They are up in your face when you get the ball. They are
stems from Chris Beard's time, right?
Yeah. I mean, Mark Adams is a tremendous coach. I think I hit on that last podcast when we briefly touched on Tech. But they're amazing on defense. They've been without their best player, Terrence Shannon. He's clearly the best player on their team. One of my kids calls him the best player in the Big 12.
Okay.
We have no Tech allegiances, by the way, at all.
We know a lot of people that do.
Yeah, we do know that. And, they beat Tennessee, which is 2nd in the country in defensive efficiency, as I just said. they're impressive. They're going to be at home. I'll be interested to see what this line is come Saturday morning. I'm interested to watch it. They played Kansas won both last year, but they were two very, very close games, highly competitive. Kansas has had kind of a weaker schedule than one would expect. They opened the season with Michigan State, score a huge win, and that's been great. They did lose to Dayton, and then they really haven't played much since then. They've just been kind of taking care of business, but they do have an incredible group of guys. They've got Agbaji back. He's averaging 20 a game. David McCormick back in the middle. Huge big man. Performed great last year. And then they got Remy Martin to transfer over from Arizona State as well in the offseason. And I just think that this is going to be a heck of a game. It's going to be really, really close again.
All right, give me one more marquee matchup for this weekend.
Let's go with Sparty visiting Michigan. Michigan, whoo, man, they are not off to a good start. 6 losses already. This
Juwan Howard,
Elite 8 team from last year. Still have Hunter Dickinson down low. They just haven't gelled. I mean, their losses have been very good teams to pretty good teams.
No Franz Wagner to play the beautiful music at Michigan.
No Wagner, but they're going to go against Sparty, and is what's always a great game. And Sparty is super deep. I mean, they're nine contributors in double digits in terms of minutes, and they do have a local product on their team as well. Julius Marble II of Dallas Jesuit. Big guy down low. A lot of talent, a lot of upside. This should be, I mean, Michigan's going to have to win this to really turn this thing around, because even though it's early January, you can't afford to be a 500 team at this point for a team like that.
Yeah. I love Tom Izzo. Always good. Teams are always tough, always in the tournament. So let's just see how MSU faces up against the Wolverines. All right. We're going to get out of here. Thank you again, Mr. Morris. I appreciate all of your insight.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard.
Thank you, Frito Nations Productions at the helm here. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast. Go to the website. It's www.linesight2020.com. Subscribe. Get all the picks we're going to have for this weekend. Get all the NFL playoffs. We're going to have another giveaway for the next 10 subscribers. We're going to do another fleece. So get out there and do it, and we will talk to you next time.